The top stories: government political commitment said vital to hold human rights violators accountable. Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Ethiopia has signed a third-party implementation agreement with the United Nations Office, UNOPS, for project services for the implementation of the World Bank financed recovery project in Tigray. According to the Ministry of Finance, the agreement was signed today by Ahmed Shide, Ethiopia's Minister of Finance, and Worknesh Mekonnen, representing the UNOPS. The project is part of the government's National Recovery Program, financed by the World Bank, with the name Response Recovery Resilience for Conflict-Affected Communities in Ethiopia project. The project is aimed at rebuilding and improving access to basic services and climate-resilient community infrastructure, as well as improving access to multi-sectoral response services for gender-based violence survivors in selected conflict-affected communities in Ethiopia. Based on the agreement with UNOPS, the agency will implement activities identified under the first objective of the project in Tigray Regional State, it added. The agreement will also reconstruct basic service providing infrastructures affected by the conflict in consultation with the communities, as well as support community-level social institutions. The government's political commitment is said vital to hold human rights violators accountable and redress to victims. Talking to ETV, legal experts urged the Ethiopian government to be more open and consistent in its approach to human rights by acknowledging and redressing violations. They also said some of human rights civil society organizations have been trying to find remedy for the violations of human rights in some parts of the country. Shagawi Yamato has this report.
In some parts of Ethiopia, the rights of citizens are being violated by various armed groups. In order to avert such human rights abuses, different civil society organizations are trying to protect these human rights violations and abuses. Talking to ETV, Ammaha Mekonnen, Executive Director at Lawyers for Human Rights civil society organization, stated that they have been trying to put different mechanisms to protect the violations and abuses of human rights in the country.
Civil society organizations in general have been doing different activities to promote human rights and put legitimate pressure on the government, the duty holder, to uphold human rights, to protect and respect human rights. So different civil society organizations use different strategies to achieve these goals. Some do human rights monitoring, documentation and investigation. Organizations like ours, Lawyers for Human Rights, we are focusing on activities that help to ensure accountability and redress for human rights violations.
We are working in conducting in-depth researches in the country, especially concerning human rights violations and other related aspects, and we are recommending some recommendations for the government to take actions and other responsibilities to avert such human rights violations.
Regarding the ongoing violations and abuses of human rights in some parts of the country, Ammaha underscored that the government must take political commitment to hold human rights violators to be accountable and redress victims.
The government, what is required is a political commitment for violators to be prosecuted, investigated and prosecuted, and victims to be redressed. In this regard, the government has to show commitment, and also the government has to continue strengthening these democratic institutions and institutions which have responsibility and duty to follow, to monitor and adjudicate human rights violations.
Tasamma Samacho, assistant professor of law at Bahar Dar University, persuaded the Ethiopian government to join the regional and international human rights adjudicatory bodies to ensure accountability of human rights violations while implementing each human rights protecting treaties that Ethiopia has so far adopted or accepted.
Ethiopia has a very impressive list of human rights ratification record. Ethiopia has been the founding member of the United Nations. Ethiopia is one of the original states which adopted the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. But this impressive human rights treaty ratification record is not manifested in the area of accepting adjudicatory bodies. So basically what this workshop is about is that these international bodies have only subsidiary role, so strengthening the local, the national legal and institutional framework should be given priority. But these institutions, these international institutions, can serve as a safety net, can play subsidiary role, complementary role to the domestic efforts.
Lawyers for Human Rights and Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, which is a civil society organization, hosted a workshop on Tuesday to promote the importance of ratification of international and regional accountability mechanisms for human rights violations in Ethiopia.
An environmentalist says the Green Legacy Initiative is rehabilitating deforested and degraded lands of Ethiopia, saying that natural reforestation should be taken into account to realize Ethiopia's green legacy. The environmentalist Yetebabu Mogas spoke to ETV here yesterday. Goshu Melisau brings you the full account.
Ethiopia is gearing up the fourth round of Green Legacy Initiative, whose successful completion will realize the country's goal of planting 20 billion tree seedlings. The Green Legacy Initiative aims at greener and cleaner Ethiopia. Talking to ETV, an environmentalist Yetebabu Mogas said the Green Legacy Initiative will rehabilitate deforested and degraded lands of Ethiopia.
Ethiopia mountains have been deforested, and the reaction naturally is reforestation for deforestation. That has been happening for millennia. So I think it's a good move. The Green Legacy is, I think, initiative is determined to change that, course of history. There are efforts in planting trees. You need to really assess some success factors, and of course also take some lessons from countries who have succeeded in reforestation.
More than 7 billion seedlings have been prepared for this year's planting campaign. About 50% of the total seedlings are for agroforestry trees, while forestry trees account for 42% and the remaining are ornamental, officials say. Launched in June 2019, the Green Legacy Initiative aims to curb the effects of climate change and deforestation in Ethiopia. Yetebabu also suggested that artificial and natural reforestation should be taken into account to realize Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative.
Reforestation for all areas in Ethiopia, it is slow. It might take really years before stages of succession are really happening before you get a real forest. You can assist that by planting if you can, but these two options of artificial and natural reforestation, I think, should be taken into consideration in the Green Legacy effort.
The environmentalist further said that some incentives in the form of technical support to the community is needed to make the National Green Legacy Program a success.
Of course, many countries have failed for the first 5, 6 years, 10 years. But then, after gathering lessons, they have really pushed the agenda forward and succeeded, like South Korea, Vietnam, China, a number of experience. Most important factors, of course, are incentive, In our case, I think large-scale reforestation for commercial purposes is actually not a way. The most important thing, and technical support, legislation, policy, clear vision, even setting targets. You know, if you go to Kenya, they have target for 2030 in their national forest policy.
The Green Legacy Initiative was launched with a target to plant 20 billion seedlings within a period of 4 years.
In business, Ethiopian Airlines has launched its very first recipe book, Fly Ethiopian Go Organic, on a colorful event at Ethiopian Skylight Hotel. This recipe book is aimed at promoting the authentic Ethiopian indigenous cuisine and beverages to the world through simple step-by-step procedures. Tegus Arnesa has compiled the following from Addis Media Network.
Ethiopian Airlines, the flag carrier of Ethiopia during the past 70-plus years, the airlines has become one of the continent's leading carrier and rivaled in Africa for efficiency and operational success, turning profits for almost all the years of its existence. The airline has launched its very first recipe book titled Fly Ethiopian Go Organic on a colorful event at Ethiopian Skylight Hotel. This recipe book is aimed at promoting the authentic Ethiopian indigenous cuisines and beverages to the world through simple step-by-step procedures. Speaking at the event, Ethiopian Airlines Group CEO Mesfin Tasso noted that the preparation of this book is part of the corporate social responsibility initiatives, which allows contributing the airline's share in promoting Ethiopia's accumulated culinary knowledge and art to the rest of the world.
Ethiopian Airlines constantly takes several initiatives to provide delicious in-flight meals of different cultures to meet the specific needs of our diverse customers.
Mesfin further added that with the Health Connection, the airline's passengers, the airline's catering team unveiled the first of its kind food recipe book, adding that the book contains organic food that the airline is serving in all its flights.
Customers are also getting increasingly more conscious about what they eat and drink in their daily life, including the time when they travel due to health considerations. With all those factors in mind, our in-flight catering team has unveiled the Fly Ethiopian Go Organic project to showcase the organic food we serve on board and how we prepare them.
During the occasion, Minister of Tourism reiterated that the airline is bringing ternary tourism to the country, calling Ethiopian Airlines to continue its social responsibility in attracting tourism and promoting the country's indigenous foods.
Ethiopian is bringing culinary tourism to Ethiopia. It is promoting the culture of Ethiopian people. So for that, I would like to say thank you to Ethiopian. And I would like to also encourage Ethiopian to keep discovering new recipes and adding to maybe the next culinary, the next recipe book.
Ethiopian Airlines operating at the forefront of technology, it has also become one of Ethiopia's major industries and a veritable institution in Africa. The airline currently serves 127 international and 22 domestic destinations, operating the newest and youngest fleet.
The 2020 Cup of Excellence competition has identified 40 best coffee growing farmers. Some 848 coffee growing farmers have presented their coffee samples in the 2020 Cup of Excellence. Habtamu Ashage tells you more.
Some 840 coffee growers have participated and presented their coffee sample for the 2020 Cup of Excellence competition. Of the total, the 2020 First Round Cup of Excellence competition has conducted samplings of selected coffees from 150 finalists from this year's Ethiopia's Coffee Cup of Excellence. Finally, 40 coffee growing farmers have won the 2020 Cup of Excellence competition. Finally, these 40 best coffee growing winners will present their coffee product at the International Coffee Auction, which will kick off on 23rd August 2020, it was learned. Information obtained from Coffee and Tea Authority showed that Ethiopia has secured over $1.4 billion from coffee export over the past 12 months. Deputy Director General of Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority, Shafi Umar, said the participation of Ethiopian coffee growers in the Cup of Excellence competition is critical to maximize Ethiopian coffee export revenue.
ይህ Cup of Excellence የአርሶ አደር ተጠቃሚነትን ለማረጋገጥ
This Cup of Excellence is important to secure the advantage of coffee growing farmers as well as to boost the nation's economy. It is also important to promote Ethiopian coffee to the international market. The Cup of Excellence is vital to find new Ethiopian coffee spices to enhance the quality of coffee. As Ethiopian Coffee and Tea Authority, we are very proud.
The Alliance for Coffee Excellence Director General Darin Daniel for his part appreciated all Ethiopian stakeholders for their immense contribution undertaking the 2020 Cup of Excellence to be effective.
All of you in Ethiopia, to congratulate all of the winners for the 3rd edition of the Cup of Excellence in Ethiopia. Without your support from the coffee producing origin of Ethiopia, producers would not be recognized to the level that they are through the Cup of Excellence program. So we want to thank all of the producers that entered and all of those that are seeking different avenues for their market access for their coffees. Also want to thank the Coffee and Tea Authority and all of those who have helped to assist under the leadership of Dr. Adunya. I also want to thank all of our staff and all of our roasters and all of the many people that are involved in making the competition work and bringing about success through another auction.
The Alliance for Coffee Excellence has been organizing the Cup of Excellence competition since 1999. It was learned.
And now take a look at the latest foreign exchange rates. Ambassador Tefera Derribo, Ethiopia's ambassador in Japan, met in his office Hirose Kenkichi, Chief Executive Director of Japan International Science and Technology Exchange Center. They have exchanged ideas on ways of opening an opportunity for young Ethiopian students, educators, and researchers to partake in a science and technology exchange program administered by the center in collaboration with Japanese educational and training institutions under the supervision of Japan Science and Technology Agency. Kenkichi explained to Ambassador Tefera about Japan International Science and Technology Exchange Center's Sakura Science Exchange Program that offers short-term science and technology training opportunities for young students, educators, and researchers drawn from different countries and regions. The Chief Executive Director extended an open application invitation for interested young Ethiopians to seize the opportunity, which is the first offer for Africans.
ስለዚህ ምንድነው ጫሞና አባያኔ ለየው ሄድ እስከ ድልድይ የሚባለው አይደል አለ አይደል ድልድዩ ማለት ነው
Jamo Lake's estimated measurements before the rain was 32 kilometers long, 13 wide, and 14 meters of depth.
And finally, in Kenya, demonstrators on the streets of Nairobi are showing their frustration ahead of August's general election. People are unhappy about rising prices, stagnating wages, and a large national debt. Politicians are using this campaign season to promise to fix the economy. But many voters are not convinced, saying they are disillusioned and do not trust their leaders. Economists say a new government will find it hard to lessen the burden for most people. Haptamu Ashagre brings you more from Al Jazeera News.
Protesters like this in Kenya have become frequent. This time they are speaking out against the rising cost of basic food prices. Many people here say life has become unbearable and the general election in August is making things more difficult. Julia is a casual worker. On a good month she earns about $100, so every coin counts. She said the cost of her basic supplies have doubled in the last few months.
We're struggling to make ends meet. Maize flour has doubled. Cooking oil has become unaffordable. My children and I have adjusted our food rations so I can balance all my needs.
Voters are electing a president, MEPs, senators, governors, and other electoral seats. Economists say a new government will find it hard to lessen the burden for most people. This is partly because of a huge public debt. Much of the money has been borrowed from China for the last project like this expressway. Some government officials have also been accused for corruption by inflating costs.
Whoever takes over as president, this is the devil's breakfast. You have just ordered the devil's breakfast. We are almost $100 billion by the time they take over, $100 billion in public debt. Yeah. We're now borrowing to pay interest on previous borrowing.
Back at Maneoni's family home, she presents a basic meal she has behind on her rent and school fees. She's running out of ways to make more money. She tells Al Jazeera that she's living in incredibly desperate times.
And now it's time for the weather updates for tomorrow.